Back when I was a kid in the early 90s, there were things that the name meant quality. If you saw a game in the arcades that had the Konami logo, you knew it was good. Same thing happened with Capcom. Even when their transition to the home consoles happened, their prestige grew higher than ever before by delivering games that were great to this day, and they live up to the expectation.
A lot of players think this is the greatest fighting game of all time. The good news is that Street Fighter 2 has kept the arcades packed. Even better news is, now you don't have to wait in line to play it.
This was all before our adult opinion got contaminated with favoritism. Back in the day, we loved video games. It appeared that Capcom loved video games too. Many of the Nintendo games we all love and remember are from Capcom. The 1940X series, Bionic Commando, Chip and Dale, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Ghosts and Goblins, Gunsmoke, The Little Mermaid, Mega Man, Mighty Final Fight. Then, when the console market expanded and we were blessed with the SNES and Genesis, we were treated to even greater games, such as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Street Fighter 2, Mega Man X, just to name a few. But what do all these games have in common? Well, it's simple really. They have a great amount of quality, devotion, and passion to make games that were fun, had great replay value, and most of all, were hard as balls. I mean, come on, don't tell me you thought of playing Mega Man on the NES and thought it was easy at first try, right? Hell, I think in my life, I've beaten Mega Man 2 once, and that was with the help of a friend. Then Capcom did it again in the following console generation by giving us the survival horror genre, introducing Resident Evil and Dino Crisis.
From the creator of Resident Evil, Dino Crisis.
Now, everyone had a chance to become a Jill sandwich.
Hurry! This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
And again, Capcom carefully crafted a game that was never before seen with unique storytelling and top-of-the-line graphics. We got a couple of gems in the following generation, such as Phoenix Wright, Onimusha, Devil May Cry, Dead Rising, and Lost Planet. But after that, can you honestly remember any memorable games that are from Capcom? Like, can you really remember a game from the last console generation and the current that are a must? It has been a dry season for Capcom and it shows. With Keiji Inafune leaving in 2010 and Shinji Mikami leaving even before that sometime in 2004, Capcom has been left with no known creative talents under their wings. And it's during this time, from like 2004 and after, that you start seeing some sort of transition from Capcom. You start seeing some PSP Capcom arcade remix bundles that somehow fell short to a true compilation with some games that we were not even expecting, but we still got. Then, we saw the cancellation of Beautiful Joe franchise aside from the PSP and DS versions. Around the same time, we saw Mega Man X7 and X8, both to mediocre reviews. And please, let's not even talk about Mega Man X Command Mission. Capcom was losing its way, and fast. Enter the late 2000s, and the new decade. The 10th, I guess? Enter 2010. This is, in my opinion, the time that Capcom started to enter the remastered territory. A time in which fans also were lost in what they wanted. They wanted their beloved franchises to come back, but if you provided same exact feelings, then the fans would get mad over receiving more of the same. We saw the new Dead Rising 2 come in with some prequels like Case Zero, but this time, Inafune wasn't in charge. Instead, Capcom passed the torch to Vancouver team Blue Castle to develop the game, and here's where my problem begins. For starters, Dead Rising 2 eliminated the time factor that made Dead Rising, well, Dead Rising. Frank West had to be at a certain time, had to escort survivors, and the only way to truly know what's going on is by clearing the missions.
You know how to use this?
Kinda. I've covered wars, you know.
In Dead Rising 2, instead we get a nice pat in the back saying, "It's okay, guy. If you don't want to do the story mode, you just want to roam around, go right ahead. Just keep your daughter safe." Why, Capcom? Why would I want to do that coming from the game that clearly wanted you to feel the complete opposite?
See, that wasn't so bad, Dad.
You sure are Daddy's girl.
Look, Dad, I got a new power in Mega Man.
We saw the release of Mega Man 9 and 10, which somehow went back to the NES style of graphics. Games that break the visual cycle because fans only seem to remember the Nintendo era of Mega Man, but completely forget the SNES sprite goodness and frame rate. And while, sure, Capcom decided to treat their Mega Man fans to old school graphics, we were not treated to old school gameplay. The games were too easy and lacked real content for that matter. Capcom suddenly realized that NES Mega Man was popular again and quickly hashed some sprites from other Mega Man and put them together by shoving the word challenge to your faces. Don't get me wrong, if you never played Mega Man before but you've seen it, this sure is gonna bring memories back, like old memories. But for the people that have played the NES games, will quickly come to face how much of a mockery Mega Man 9 and Mega Man Turn are. In terms of design and difficulty, you really come across something so bleak that you should be ashamed to have spent that much money on them. In the end, Capcom missed the mark and decided to stop pursuing Mega Man games since, even canceling an awaited project called Mega Man Universe, a game you could choose any style of Mega Man and make your own stages. I guess Capcom thought it wasn't going to work, kinda like Mario Maker. Let's ask Nintendo how they feel about that. But onto a franchise I love, Dead Rising. Remember when I mentioned the time factor was kinda your choice in Dead Rising 2? Well, it's completely fucking gone in Dead Rising 3. Blue Castle heard your complaints and decided to say, "Hold my beer, bro," and made a game that was so confusing and its main character had no depth that it basically meant nothing. I mean, you really didn't miss anything if you skipped this game at all. The only thing that made this game slightly interesting was the Xbox DLC.
Super Ultra Dead Rising 3 Arcade Remix Hyper Edition EX Plus Alpha!
A tongue-in-cheek to all the Capcom bullshit that has been pulled off from the Street Fighter series. And speaking of Street Fighter bullshit, let's talk about our beloved Street Fighter Cross Tekken and how awesome it was to have Day 1 DLC burn in the fucking disc. I mean, I purchased this game because I love Capcom vs. series, and Tekken was my favorite 3D fighter, so, you know, you get the best of both worlds, right? Wrong. For starters, as soon as you pop the disc, you go to select characters and you will notice a varied array of characters you can play with, only to realize you have to pay real money. Yes, you can see that in the menu, but you can't select them, and not only that, but somehow Capcom forgot to include their Tag Team Battle Online system on the Xbox 360. We also got weird games like Remember Me, a game so easily forgotten that's kind of ironic that it has that title. A game so bad that I had to stop playing after like 1 hour. I wanted this game to work so bad since it looked like Ghost in the Shell, but it had a bad voiceover and a completely uninteresting story. It just fell flat. And speaking of other games you might not remember, but after hearing this you probably go like, oh yeah. Alright, Dark Void, the Bionic Commando remake, one so bad that I had to get its own remake after that, Resident Evil Mercenaries, Devil May Cry 4, yes, there was a fourth one, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, a game so bad you can play one hand, Mega Man Zero Collection, a game I will actually recommend that was overcasted by the network bullshit game kind of thing. Lost Planet 2 and 3, Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, Steel Battalion Heavy Armor, and of course, Strider. All of these games came out in about the last 10 years, yet many of them you don't even remember that came out. Then, we got Resident Evil 5, or as I call it, How to Shoot Steroids in Africa. Enter Chris Boulder Puncher Redfield, a cop with so much free time he spends up shooting steroids in every gym in the world. I guess someone's compensated for something, wink wink. The game not only doesn't make sense with the whole parasite shit, but on top of that you have Shiva. The AI is so stupid she will try to heal you when she doesn't even have healing items. Not only that, but when that stuck baby's in her all fucking game. And if she dies, it's game over, man. Resident Evil 5 and even Resident Evil 6 bring a whole lot of action-packed thriller into your eyes, but they forgot or left behind what made Resident Evil a great game, a great Resident Evil game. Survival, not knowing what's in the next corner, canning your ammo, your healing items, adjusting inventory space, and making hard choices when it comes down to selecting what to pick up. Resident Evil 6 threw everything down the window and decided to see how many Resident Evil characters they could cram into one game. We got Pretty Boy Leon? Checked. Gunshot Redfield? Check. Wesker's son? Double check. Now we're ready to party, right? Right? Both these games lacked the real tension of a Resident Evil game, and basically became games that challenged to press QTE buttons with a certain amount of time while still giving you a cookie for doing so. Most recently, Capcom has released two big games, again, Street Fighter V and Resident Evil 7, both claiming to have come back to their roots. And let's be honest, Street Fighter V had a rocky start by forgetting to include the arcade mode and then focus on esports. But even esport professional players complain on how the mechanics of the game were garbage. And for Resident Evil 7, since when did Resident Evil become Outlast? Clearly the devs saw like they were losing ground to indie horror games and decided to make one of their own. And while the game brings back survival factor to the game, you can literally slap another game title on the cover and you would not even notice you're playing Resident Evil. In the end, it seems Capcom is trying to recover ground by throwing as much as possible to us, the gamers. And while some of them do stick, like Monster Hunter, which is a game that literally has strong sales in whatever console it comes out, the image Capcom has to their once loyal fans is one of greed and a lack of interest for what once made them the greatest company in the world.